Now, it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. You'll see it all on Sky as it unfolds. I'm sure Ross Greenwood will be in the middle of it. The mid-year economic and fiscal outlook will be released by the Treasurer. Already we know the government will have to spend, it seems, $80 billion more than previously forecast over the next decade, paying interest on its $918 billion gross debt. But don't worry, because Jim Chalmers has got a plan, as we saw in the Australian today. Jim is here to save the day by once again uttering the words renewal and reform. Joining me now is Leith van Onselen, economist who's worked for the Australian and Victorian Treasury and co-founder of MacroBusiness.com.au. You're going to sleep easy tonight, Leith, that Jim's got all those buzzwords ready to let go tomorrow?
Yeah, mate, I'll be sleeping really easy. Look, tomorrow's MYEFO is expected to report a $9 billion improvement in the budget compared to what it said in the May budget. And the reason for that basically is because we've had this big boom in income tax receipts. So effectively, obviously, as we all know, population growth's run a lot hotter than what the major budget projected. And what basically done is it's increased the number of workers in the economy, and that's increased tax receipts. And at the same time, we've obviously had bracket creep because of this really high inflation, and the expiry of the middle income tax offsets basically lifted average income tax payable to its equal highest share of household income. So the federal budget's basically reaped the rewards from that, even though you and I and everyone else, Steve, are pretty much hurting.
So, Leith, that's why governments love big Australia, don't they? That's why they have lots of migrants coming to the country, because it means they get tax receipts and they can stand up and say we've got an extra $9.8 billion.
100%, mate. And look, it's really only the federal budget that benefits from this, because the federal government collects 80% of the tax revenue. So they get all the gains from personal income taxes, company taxes that you get from a bigger population and bigger, more economic activity. The problem is the cost of that all falls on the states, because the states provide obviously the services. So they're hospitals, schools, all that kind of thing, and infrastructure. And also falls on you and me, because we all end up, basically the states have to sell off all their assets, as you've seen, places like Sydney and Melbourne. And then we have to pay higher user pay charges. And it's the reason why in places like Sydney, Steve, 20 years ago, you had about 2 toll roads, now you got about 20, and you can't drive anywhere without Transurban having the hand in your pocket.
We still can't get inflation under control, but you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but one of the problems that is driving inflation is the massive debts that states like Victoria in particular have, and the interest payment that is due to pay off that debt. It's incredibly high.
Yeah, actually, I'd argue that the bigger problem with Australia is the federal government's basically got its foot on the accelerator, pumping in record numbers of people. And what that's doing is that's basically pumping demand across the economy. So we've got the situation where individual households, on average, are cutting back their expenditure, but we're adding more households than households can cut back. And what that's basically doing is that's pushing up inflation. And at the same time, you've got all the state governments trying to build infrastructure to keep up with this mass immigration. And then that's obviously putting pressure on inflation. So basically, we've got a burnout economy where the federal government's got the foot on the accelerator while the RBA is trying to get the foot on the brake by jacking up interest rates. And the losers are basically the mortgage holders in the middle, as well as Australian renters who are seeing the rents go through the roof through this record population growth. So it's a bit of a diabolical situation.
What would you like to hear Jim Chalmers say tomorrow, as opposed to what he has said? Not a lot of this is leaked. I mean, his jargon words have, but what do you think he needs to actually do to try and get the economy back into some decent shape?
Look, it's pretty hard. The way the economy's set up at the moment, we've basically got record numbers of people coming in through this, crazy immigration program, and unfortunately, as much as we don't like to hear it, the governments have to spend money, infrastructure, housing, all those sorts of things, to keep up with that population growth. And if they don't do it, our living standards go backwards. But if they do it, we're going to have this problem of increasing debt and increasing inflation. So we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. What I'd love to see him do is come out tomorrow and say we're going to slash immigration to, levels before 2005, so about 100,000 a year. But unfortunately, they've already come out and said they're not going to do it. And MYEFO's tipping net overseas migration this financial year 375,000, Steve, which is actually 50,000 more than are projected in the May federal budget. So they're not actually cutting immigration at all, and that's basically behind a lot of the problems Australia finds itself in with living standards.
Just briefly, Leith, does he need to say something about how we're going to fix the housing problem? I mean, rents, lines of people around the corner trying to find a rental property and no tradies to build houses.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've got this fake, 1.2 million homes over 5 years target, which absolutely nobody believes that they can make in an era of high interest rates, builder failures, high material costs and all the other stuff. But again, it's this problem. I mean, they're fire hosing record numbers of people into the country, and we just don't have the houses and infrastructure to keep up. And that means that we've got basically people being made homeless, we've got rents going through the roof, and living standards are becoming crush loaded all over. So that's the key problem.
Lee, thanks very much for your time tonight. Good to catch up now.